My name is Lena Hartley, and I'm 34 years old. To the outside world, I had it all. A beautiful life in Riverbend, a thriving career as a home design consultant, and the pride of owning a $15 million dream house that I had worked my whole adult life to build. It wasn't just a house. It was my symbol of success, my sanctuary, my reward for years of hustle and sacrifices. I'd always believed that love would be the final piece of my puzzle. And when I met Caleb, a 37-year-old software trainer, he seemed like the one who would understand my pace, my ambition, and my independence. He said all the right things, kind, respectful, supportive. Within a year, we were engaged, and soon after, married in what I thought was the happiest day of my life. But I had no idea that my wedding day would be the quiet beginning of a very painful chapter. As I walked down the aisle that day, something felt a little off. Caleb looked distracted. I brushed it off as nerves. It was a big day, after all. We were surrounded by friends, music, and joy. I held on to that dream tightly. I thought we were about to start a new, peaceful life together in my home. After the wedding, he moved in with me, and for the first few weeks, things were smooth. But it didn't take long before his mother entered the picture, Diane, a 64-year-old retired librarian who had opinions about everything, especially about how my home should be run. And from there, the cracks began to show. At first, I tried to be understanding. I knew families came with different dynamics, and maybe Diane was just trying to be involved. But her presence quickly shifted from occasional visits to frequent, uninvited drop-ins. She never called beforehand. She'd just walk in like she owned the place. And it wasn't just her presence, it was her tone. "Lena, dear, have you considered repainting these walls? They feel so cold," she said once, standing in my living room with her arms crossed. Another time, she wrinkled her nose and muttered, "That coffee table doesn't really match the energy of the room, does it?" I gritted my teeth and stayed polite, hoping she'd get the message. But Caleb? He never said a word to her. In fact, he encouraged it. When I finally brought it up, trying to be gentle, I said, "Caleb, I feel uncomfortable. This is my home, and I need space. Your mom's visits are becoming a bit overwhelming." He didn't even look up from his phone. "She just wants to help Lena. That's what family does. Maybe don't take it so personally." It stung. Not just the words, but the way he said them. Like I was the unreasonable one. I had built this home, brick by brick, with every decision reflecting me. And now it felt like I was slowly being pushed out of my own space. The final straw came a few weeks later. One evening, I came home late from work to find Diane standing in the entryway with 3 suitcases stacked beside her. Her lips curled into a smug smile. "I've decided to move in. Caleb and I talked, and this just makes sense. He needs his mother close by." My heart dropped. You didn't even ask me," I whispered. "This is his house too now, isn't it?" she replied. "Surely, you didn't think you'd keep all the control forever." I turned to Caleb, hoping, pleading for him to step in. But he just nodded and said, "It'll be fine, Lena. She's not here to cause trouble. Let's just try to get along." I stood there, betrayed, humiliated, and outnumbered. And for the first time, I wondered if I had made the biggest mistake of my life. Days turned into weeks, and Diane's presence took over everything. She rearranged the furniture without asking, threw away things she claimed were too modern, and even criticized how I folded my laundry. But the worst part wasn't her words. It was Caleb's silence. Every time I brought it up, he defended her or brushed it off. "You're overreacting. She's just trying to be part of our life. Stop making everything a battle, Lena." Eventually, I stopped talking about it altogether. It didn't change anything. I had never felt so invisible in my own home. Then something happened that gave me a flicker of hope. I found out I was pregnant. A part of me believed that this news would bring us back together, remind Caleb of what truly mattered. I imagined he would hug me, kiss my forehead, and promise to be better. I thought Diane would soften, even if just a little. But when I told them, their reactions crushed me. Diane barely blinked. "Well, then, I hope you're watching what you eat." "We don't need complications," she said, as if I had told her I'd brought home a stray cat. Caleb gave a brief smile, mumbled "that's good," and then picked up his phone to scroll through emails. I excused myself and went to the bathroom, locking the door behind me before the tears came. I had wanted to start a family with love, stability, and joy. Instead, I was carrying a child in a house that didn't feel like home, with a man who no longer looked at me with affection, and a mother-in-law who treated me like a guest overstaying her welcome. The walls began to feel tighter, my breath shorter. Every day was a performance, pretending everything was fine while slowly losing my sense of self. Then came the night I will never forget. It was late. I had worked overtime that day and stopped to pick up groceries on the way home, trying to be responsible, trying to hold things together. But when I got to the front door, my key didn't work. I twisted it again. Nothing. I knocked, confused. A few seconds later, I heard Diane's voice from the other side, sharp, cold, and terrifyingly calm. "You're not coming in, Lena. Not unless you agree to sign over the house to Caleb." I froze. My chest tightened. "What?" I whispered through the door, barely able to process her words. "You heard me," she snapped. "You can stand out there all night if you want. But unless you're ready to hand over the house, you're done here. I'll even call the police if you try to break in." My voice cracked as I begged. "Please, Diane. I'm pregnant. Let me in. This is my home. I paid for it. I built it." "Not anymore. It's our home now. And you've overstayed your welcome." I looked around helplessly, the cold air biting at my skin. There were neighbors nearby, but I couldn't move. I couldn't even cry. My whole life, everything I'd fought for, was being stripped from me by the very people who were supposed to be my family. After a few minutes, the porch light turned off. They left me there, alone, pregnant, and homeless. I sat on the front steps for hours, staring at the front door like it would magically open. But it never did. My phone buzzed once. It was a message from Caleb. "I'm sorry, but this is what's best for everyone." That was the moment something inside me changed. I wiped my face, stood up, and walked away, not just from the house, but from the illusion I had been living in. I had been quiet for too long. I had been too forgiving. Now it was time to fight back. I took a cab straight to my parents' house on the other side of Riverbend. They had always respected my independence, never interfering in my choices, even when I married Caleb, without much hesitation. But when I arrived at their doorstep that night, tear-streaked, exhausted, and carrying a single bag, they didn't ask 100 questions. They simply opened the door and pulled me into a hug. My mother, Karen, wrapped her arms around me tightly. "You'll stay here, sweetheart. As long as you need. We'll figure this out together." My father, Joel, a retired firefighter, didn't say much at first. But I saw it in his eyes, anger, disappointment, and pain. Not at me, but at what I had endured. He placed a hand on my shoulder and said, "No one throws my daughter out of her own house. Not without consequences." For the first time in weeks, I felt safe. The next morning, as I sat at their kitchen table sipping tea, I felt a strange calm settle over me. It wasn't weakness, it was focus. A quiet, fierce determination began building inside me. I realized I had to stop hoping things would fix themselves. Caleb and Diane hadn't made a mistake. They made a choice. And now it was my turn to make one. That's when I called Mara, my closest friend from college, now a well-established legal advocate who specialized in family disputes and property law. She had always been sharp, level-headed, and loyal. When I told her everything, she didn't hesitate. "Lena, what they did is not just cruel, it's legally outrageous," Mara said, her voice firm. "We'll file for divorce immediately, but more importantly, we'll take legal steps to reclaim your property and protect your future. You are not alone in this." Just hearing her say that made my breath steadier. But what if they fight back? Diane's not exactly subtle, and Caleb, he's not above lying. "Let them try," Mara replied. "They'll be fighting the law this time." We got to work immediately. Over the next few weeks, Mara and I became a team. She guided me through everything, what documentation I needed, how to present my timeline, and most importantly, how to prove the emotional manipulation and coercion I had endured. Every morning, I sat at the kitchen table with my old laptop and started putting the pieces together. It was hard, digging up those memories, but I knew I had to do it. I collected screenshots of text messages from Caleb and Diane. Most were subtle, but full of controlling language. Things like, "You should be grateful we're making this work. Your behavior lately has made this house unbearable. This is what happens when you forget your place." I also kept a journal, writing down everything. Diane's remarks, her invasion of my personal space, her constant criticism. I even documented the day I walked in to find her going through my private documents in my home office. I remembered that moment so clearly. I had walked into the kitchen, tired and excited to tell Caleb that I'd finally found a name for the baby. But Diane was there, sitting at the table with my bank statements and property files spread out in front of her. "What are you doing?" I asked, stunned. She didn't even flinch. "Just reviewing what's necessary. You're going to be a mother now, Lena. It's important to be financially prepared." My voice had trembled with rage. "You have no right to go through my things." She gave a cold smile. "If Caleb struggles, we all struggle. That's how family works." That moment wasn't just invasive. It was the day I realized she had always viewed me as a stepping stone, not a daughter-in-law. Mara included every bit of this in our documentation. "This isn't just about property or power," she said one day, flipping through a printed folder. "This is about protecting your right to live free from fear, control, and intimidation. We're not just proving what they did. We're proving who they are." And I was ready to show the court exactly that. The morning of the hearing, I stood in front of my parents' mirror, smoothing out the simple navy blue dress I'd chosen. I wasn't trying to impress anyone. I just wanted to look like myself. Strong, collected, ready. My stomach churned as I walked into the courthouse. I wasn't just fighting for a house. I was fighting for my freedom, my identity, and the safety of the child I was carrying. Mara was already waiting at the entrance, dressed professionally, her folder in hand and her expression calm. "You've got this, Lena. I'll speak for you. But when it's your turn, don't hold back. Tell the truth. That's what wins cases." As we walked into the courtroom, I saw Caleb seated across the room, his jaw clenched, eyes darting around. Diane sat beside him, as poised and smug as ever. She stared directly at me like this was a game she still thought she could win. The judge, a woman in her early 60s with sharp eyes and a stern presence, entered the room, and the proceedings began. Mara started with a powerful opening statement. "Your Honor, my client, Lena Hartley, is a victim of emotional coercion and unlawful eviction during her pregnancy. We're not here with petty disagreements. We're here because her legal rights, her dignity, and her property were stripped from her by the very people who were supposed to protect her." She laid out the timeline, the messages, the journal entries, and every piece of evidence we had collected. The judge listened closely, taking notes as Mara spoke. Then it was Caleb's lawyer's turn. He stood and calmly said, "Lena is trying to take everything for herself. She's emotional, unstable, and shutting Caleb out of his own family for personal gain." I clenched my fists under the table. But I didn't flinch. Not anymore. When the judge called me to testify, I stood up and took the oath, heart pounding but voice steady. I welcomed Caleb and his mother into my life. I loved him. I shared everything I had. I began. But they turned my home into a place of fear and isolation. I was told to sign away what I built or leave. I was locked out of my own front door while pregnant. That wasn't just betrayal. It was cruelty. As I spoke, I caught a glimpse of Diane. Her smile had faded. Caleb stared at the floor. The judge looked at me with quiet intensity. She didn't interrupt. She just let me finish. And when I did, I felt power return to me, word by word. The courtroom felt heavy with silence as I stepped down from the witness stand. For the first time in months, I wasn't afraid of Caleb or Diane. I had spoken my truth, not with rage, but with strength. That strength had taken a long time to find, and I wasn't letting go of it now. Caleb's lawyer tried to recover. He brought up old conversations, tried to twist them into proof that I was hostile, but Mara was prepared. She shot back with calm, precise arguments and countered every misrepresentation with solid evidence. The judge listened quietly, her eyes flicking between both sides. When it was Diane's turn to speak, she didn't hold back. "I only wanted what was best for my son," she said coldly. "Lena never welcomed me. She made me feel like an outsider. I simply protected my son's future." She didn't mention locking me out. She didn't mention going through my private documents. She didn't show a hint of remorse. But the judge saw through her. After a short recess, we were all called back to hear the verdict. My heart thudded in my chest as the judge looked over her glasses and began to speak. "After reviewing the evidence and hearing both testimonies, it is clear to this court that Ms. Lena Hartley has been the victim of prolonged emotional manipulation, coercion, and wrongful eviction during a vulnerable stage in her life." She paused, then continued, voice firm. "Therefore, this court grants full legal ownership of the property to Ms. Hartley and awards her full custody rights. Mr. Caleb Winters is ordered to vacate the premises immediately. Furthermore, Diane Winters' interference and role in these events have been noted. Though she is not a legal tenant, her actions constitute harassment, and she will face appropriate civil penalties." I exhaled, a sound caught between a sob and a laugh. Mara placed her hand gently on my back. "You did it," she whispered. "It's over." But I knew this wasn't just an end. It was the beginning. Outside the courthouse, the air felt different. Lighter. I saw Caleb and Diane walking away, their faces tight with disbelief and defeat. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. A few days after the ruling, I returned to my home, not just physically, but emotionally. It had been stripped of peace and warmth for so long, but now, every room was mine again. I stood in the doorway, hand on my belly, and whispered, "We're safe now." The first thing I did was change every lock. Then I painted. Room by room, wall by wall, I repainted over the shadows they had left behind. It wasn't just about color. It was about healing. I bought fresh flowers, rearranged the furniture. I got rid of the old curtains Diane had installed without asking and replaced them with soft, ivory ones that let the sunlight pour in. It felt like a slow exhale. As the weeks passed, I focused on preparing for my baby. Every ultrasound, every small kick, every flutter inside reminded me why I had fought so hard. I wasn't just rebuilding for myself. I was creating a world of stability, love, and respect for my child. My parents visited often. They helped me install a crib. My dad fixed the squeaky gate in the backyard. My mom brought homemade soup and warm hugs. Their quiet support reminded me that family isn't who shares your blood, it's who stands beside you when the world tries to knock you down. Mara remained in touch too. She helped me set up legal protections for the future, so no one could ever challenge my ownership again. She also encouraged me to share my story, not for pity, but for power. She said, "There are more women like you out there, Lena. You've shown that silence isn't strength, standing up is." I thought a lot about that. A few months later, I gave birth to a beautiful, healthy baby girl. I named her Aria, a name that means melody, freedom, and air. She came into the world with a quiet cry and wide, curious eyes, and the moment I held her, I whispered, "You'll never have to beg for love. You'll never be silenced. And you'll always know your worth." Looking back, I still feel the sting of betrayal, the pain of being thrown out, and the ache of being unsupported during pregnancy. But I don't carry those wounds as weakness anymore. They became my turning points. The house that once felt like a battleground is now filled with laughter, lullabies, and warmth. Aria's tiny socks hang near the laundry room. Her books line the nursery shelves. And in the quiet of night, when I rock her to sleep, I know I gave her more than a roof over her head. I gave her a legacy of strength. Caleb and Diane tried to erase me from my own life. Instead, they reminded me who I was. And I will teach my daughter the same. We don't bend to control. We don't shrink for comfort. And we never, ever hand over what we've built. I am Lena Hartley, and this is not the story of what was taken from me. This is the story of what I took back: my house, my peace, my power, and my future. If this story moved you, don't forget to like the video to support the channel. Share your thoughts in the comments. We read every one of them. And if you enjoy true story content like this, make sure to subscribe for more powerful narratives. Your support means everything. Thank you for watching.